he made that statement, and he made it several times, he then posed the question, not rhetorically, of course, some say rhetorically, but it does not matter. When he asked, when we say, seek ye first the political kingdom and the rest will be given unto you, what are these other things that will be given unto you? And he then went on a journey of explaining to his audience, the things that will be given unto you are the dividends of economic emancipation. We are going to talk about economic emancipation because freedom of the political kind in and of itself is not an end. We are going to talk about how to eradicate poverty. We are going to talk about how to feed ourselves. We are going to talk about how to harness our resources. And he specifically mentioned we are going to ensure that our coffee farmers get their fair share of what they deserve. We are going to make sure that our gold does not benefit foreigners, but is going to be beneficial to the people of Ghana. We are going to ensure that we build infrastructure and roads for ourselves. We are going to ensure that we have electricity. We are going to industrialize Ghana. And he reminded his audience that the Ghanaians had a great duty, the duty to demonstrate to those who are in the business of doubting that Africans cannot manage their affairs, that indeed Africa could. And he was as consistent as he was passionate. But perhaps one of the greatest things that the Osagie for Kwame Nkrumah did and said that will remain indelibly marked in the sands of time is the speech that he made on the 25th day of May, 1963. That was the occasion when the 32 heads of states and government of the then independent African countries, at the invitation of Ethiopia's Haile Selassie, assembled in Addis Ababa. And at that time, many of you will remember that the imperialist, whom the Osagie had rightly said, does not change his character, but only wears different masks, had already started to animate their diabolical scheme of dividing the continent of Africa along what some described ideological lines, but in my view, they were simply a bunch of progressive, retrogressive counter-revolutionaries and progressive African leaders. You'll remember that that division was christened the Monrovia Group, that was led by Tubman of Liberia and included, among others, Felix Houphouët-Boigny of La Côte d'Ivoire, who had been persuaded effectively, particularly by the French government administration of Charles de Gaulle, that Africa should not unite. And the more progressive group, which comprised the Osagie for Kwame Nkrumah, Ahmed Ben Bella of Algeria, Modibo Keita of then the Sudan, now Mali, and a little later, people such as Julius Kambarage Nyerere of Tanzania and Kenneth David Kaunda, known as the Casablanca Group. And they were clear on that day in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia. The Osagie was riding on the crest of what he had said times without number. He had said on a number of occasions that the situation in Africa is heartening and encouraging, but also disturbing. Heartening and encouraging because 32 African countries which had labored under the yoke of the colonialists were now politically independent. But disturbing because the erstwhile colonizer was already using some within the ranks of Africans to divide the continent. The Osagie had reminded the continent that African peoples may have diverse cultures and different languages, but their diversity was going to be the glue that was going to make unity a reality. He had reminded his audience times without number that indeed African countries that have been created in Berlin in 1884 and 1885 were unviable. They were too small. And if they persisted in their disunity, then they will be manipulated by the erstwhile colonizer. The Osagyefo was as clear as he was prophetic. He himself said that he was already doing the work of prophets without the gift of prophecy, but he had the ability, now history demonstrates to us, to take the pulse of the continent and to read it correctly. So that when he spoke on that day, on the 25th day of May, 1963, he was not the only speaker, there were others. And I can remember excerpts from a few of the leaders. I can remember Haile Selassie of Ethiopia reminding his audience that it was a momentous occasion that Africans were present in Addis Ababa. I can remember David Dacko of Central African Republic saying that he himself and his people were happy that they were now under a new administration which was led by the people of Central African Republic. I can remember Julius Kambarage Nyerere reminding his audience that they did not come to Addis Ababa to underline how important unity was, because unity was a condition sine qua non, but that they were coming there to cement unity. I can remember many of them saying great things, which are now recorded in history. But indeed, many have spoken, the 31 of them spoke, but the standout speech on that day was that of Osagyefo KWAME NKRUMAH. He was as passionate as he was direct. He was as direct as he was right. He was as right as he was prophetic. He was as prophetic as he was realistic. And he told his audience, we are gathered here because we are independent. I'm paraphrasing the Osagyefo. We are gathered here. Let us be in the knowledge that the independence that we have regained was not given to us on a silver platter. The imperialist does not give anything for free. He does so willy-nilly. The Africans fought and sacrificed. That is why we are here today. We are here today because our people fought and sacrificed and recognized that the long-term health of the Black man not only demanded but required that we must be masters of our own affairs, that we prefer poverty in freedom rather than tranquility in servitude, the Osagyefo said. But he told them to remember that the neo-colonial project may have been terminated, but there was another project which was being manufactured in earnest, the neo-colonial project. And he said that the neo-colonial project was as pernicious, if not more pernicious, than the colonial project. He therefore told his audience, the only way in which we can immunize ourselves from the diabolical machinations of these shape-shifting neo-colonialists and imperialists is to unite. I hear the Osagyefo telling his audience, let us not leave Addis Ababa without forming a common government. Let us not leave Addis Ababa without agreeing that we are going to have one army. Let us not leave Addis Ababa without recognizing that we need one currency. Let us not leave Addis Ababa without recognizing and ensuring that we are going to have free trade. Let us not leave Addis Ababa without choosing where our capital is. And the Osagyefo went on to hazard, he went on to say, if I was asked, Bangui in Central African Republic would be the capital of that new thing called Africa. And if not Bangui, Leopoldville, now known as Kinshasa. But he then said, my word is not final, my colleagues and the people of Africa will determine that. And he told them, let us not leave here, therefore, without having our foreign ministers convening a meeting at which they'll discuss all issues and report back to us. But they listened not to the Osagyefo. They listened not to him. And what we ended up with was a success from for the Monrovia group. We ended up with a watered down organization known as the Organization of African Unity. The story of the Organization of African Unity is known. We are not saying that he did not achieve certain things. I remember there are certain things that were done under the aegis of the Organization of African Unity, such as the struggle against the Smith regime in what is now Zimbabwe, or the struggle against the apartheid regime in South Africa, or the struggle against the apartheid regime in what was then known as Southwest Africa, now known as Namibia. I can still see them working in the struggle against the Portuguese in Guinea-Bissau, in Mozambique, and in Angola. But to a large extent, the OAU, as some have described, was nothing but a toothless bulldog. Or if it had teeth, the teeth were not sharp enough to liberate Africa from her economic woes. And if anybody doubted the Osagie for Kwame Nkrumah, no sooner had the dust settled in the gains that we had made via decolonization, and even earlier, we started seeing the dirty hand of the neocolonialists. How many of you present here will forget the murderous regime of the Belgians who took out Congo's Patrice Emery Lumumba? How many of you here will forget how the French took out Togo's Sylvanus Olympio? How many of you will remember how they manufactured coup d'etats? How many of you will forget how the Osagie for himself in 1966 was removed from power? How many of you will forget how Nigeria's Nnamdi Azikiwe was removed from power, and how Tafawa Balewa, the then prime minister, was liquidated, and the sojourner of Sokoto's Ahmadu Bello? How many of you will remember how they treated Algeria's Ahmed Ben Bella? And one can go on and on. How the coups then became the way of neutralizing the gain that we had made. So the Osagie was right. And we went and are still going through a difficult phase, a phase that vindicates the Osagie. So vindicated was the Osagie that in the year 2000, the African nations started re-examining the efficacy of the Organization of African Unity, and they agreed that they needed to go back to what the Osagie had said. I remember so very vividly during the chairmanship of South Africa's Nkosazana and Dlamini Zuma, when she became the chair, she wrote an imaginary letter to Kwame Nkrumah, telling Kwame Nkrumah, we apologize to you, Kwame Nkrumah. You told us to do certain things in a certain way, but we forgot. But now that we have had the scales removed from our eyes, we shall retrace our steps. We shall not persist in our foolishness. We shall correct our mistakes and do what you prescribed to us 50 years before. And that is how the African Union came into being before she was appointed. And that is how we now have the African Union and Africa Agenda 2063 saying the very same thing that the Osagie had said. If you look at the Africa Agenda 2063 and listen to the speech of the Osagie for Kwame Nkrumah, it is a rehash of the same. If you look at earlier initiatives such as the Lagos Plan of Action of 1980, it is the same thing that the Osagie had said. If you look at the Lomé Agreement of 1975, it is the same thing that the Osagie had said. If you look at the 2000 Cotonou Agreement, it's the same thing that the Osagie had said. If you look at the Africa Continental Free Trade Area, we started operating in Accra, Ghana on the first day of January this year, 2021. It is the same thing that the Osagie had said. If one were to be romantic and melodramatic at once, the Osagie was ahead of his time. But it is not our duty, it does no good to the Osagie and others to lament and to remain in lamentation. The most important thing and the greatest homage that we can pay to the Osagie Kwame Nkrumah is to give meaning to his words and to his works. And I now wonder to myself, if the Osagie is up there, he looks at Africa and looks at her as she is now. And he remembers how in 1963 he had prescribed what he thought was an antidote to our problems. What would the Osagyefo foresee? The Osagyefo would see an Africa that is as disturbing and heartening as he said in 1957. It is disturbing because if the Osagyefo looks down from yonder, he sees an Africa which has reneged on her promises. An Africa that promised her sons and daughters that she would eliminate poverty, and poverty is still rampant. An Africa that promised her sons and daughters that she would eliminate ignorance, and ignorance is common in the continent. An Africa that promised her sons and daughters that she would bring peace and tranquility is at war. This is what the Osagyefo would see. The Osagyefo would see that there is a conflict in South Sudan, and the Osagyefo would lament. The Osagyefo would see that there is conflict in the Nuba Mountains and the Blue Nile and in Darfur in the Sudan. The Osagyefo would see that there is conflict in Tigray in Ethiopia, the very place, the very home of the country where he delivered his 1963 speech. The Osagyefo would look at Somalia and he would see that the Somalia is divided and it needs peace. The Osagyefo would look at Mozambique and he would see that there is an insurgency in northern Mozambique. The Osagyefo would also not stop there. The Osagyefo would go to Eastern Congo and see how the home of Patrice Emery Lumumba has never known peace since Patrice Emery was eliminated. The Osagyefo would go to Central African Republic and he would recognize that there is no peace there, the home of David Dacko. He would go a little up there and see Burkina Faso, the home of Thomas Sankara, and he would see that there is no peace there. He would go to Niger. He would go to Mali, he would go to Mauritania and he would see there is no peace there. He would go to the Cameroons and he would lament about the plight of the Amazonians. He would go to Nigeria and recognize that Boko Haram have now made kidnapping a sport. He would go and remember that even before that, there were civil wars in Sierra Leone, in Liberia. He would remember that Libya is not at ease, Algeria is not at ease. He would remember that even Tunisia is not at ease. He will remember that at one time there was a genocide in Rwanda. He would remember that even Burundi is just struggling. He would look at Kenya and see how tribalism, which he condemned, is the only way in which the Kenyan politician knows how to manipulate and to organize our politics. The Osagyefo would be saddened, but he would not allow the pathos of the moment to drown his enthusiasm. He would tell Africa once again that it's not too late. He would tell us, we who are assembled here this evening, the mantle is yours. Wake up and do what is right. Go into the corners of Africa and shout from the rooftops, even if you cannot be heard at your most eloquent. Go to Cape Town and tell them that Africa must unite. Tell the South Africans that there is no time for xenophobia. You will tell us to go to South Africa. We'll go to Egypt. You'll tell us, go to Cairo, the home of Gamal Abdel Nasser, and tell us that we need to unite. He will tell us to go to Dakar. He will tell us to go to Djibouti and Addis Ababa and Bangui and Kinshasa and all other capitals and remind us, I told you, seek ye first the political kingdom and the rest shall be given unto you. But those other things have not come. In fact, the Osagyefo would say, even the political freedom is disappearing by the day. So we who are here, we who are celebrating the Osagyefo KWAME NKRUMAH, what justice can we do to his memory? What we must do is to live and seek to do what he instructed us to do. Let us do what is good and right. Let us speak from the inner recesses of our minds and hearts and remind the fifth columnist amongst our ranks, remind the African political class who have become kleptocrats that the time is now. The time is now to give meaning to the speech of the Osagyefo Kwame Nkrumah in 1963. The time is now to give meaning to the ideas which were rehashed, but which he had articulated. The time is now to make Africa Agenda 2063 real. The time is now to make the Yamoussoukro protocol true so that Africans can fly. The time is now to make the Kigali protocol true so that Africans can travel without visas. The time is now to have one currency so that the Ghanaian traveling from Accra, Ghana to Somalia will have one currency to deal with. The time is now. The time is now to use the ideas of the Osagyefo Kwame Nkrumah to unite and claim the dividends of the fourth industrial revolution. The time is now. The choice is yours and mine. We can continue to romanticize the ideas of the Osagyefo without giving them practical meaning, or we can choose to give them meaning by giving them life, by giving them the oxygen of reality. So let us all unite. Unite in the knowledge that if we are disunited, we shall be conquered. Unite in the knowledge that if we do not do what is good and right, we will be conquered again. Unite in the knowledge that Africa can't be great, but she can only be great in our unity. Unite in the knowledge that if we want to shake this big tree called neocolonialism, we must remain strong and united, because if we don't, as the Igbo rightly say, he who is weak and wants to shake the giant Iroko tree will only end up shaking his buttocks. Let us not shake our buttocks. Let us combine and give meaning to the great man of Ghana, the great man of Africa, the Osagyefo Kwame Nkrumah. That is why we say Nkrumah is dead, but Nkrumah never dies. Not because his mortal remains are not interred in Nkrumah, but because his ideas are alive for every generation to give meaning. Let the Osagyefo's idea live. Let us be warriors for what he preached. God bless you and have a good evening.
Wow, 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 wow. Ladies and gentlemen, a round of applause, please. Thank you so much, Professor Lumumba, for that. You said, you know, giving meaning to his words means that us basically making sure that the Agenda 2063, that which he actually, you know, dreamt of, that which, you know, have been actually written. I remember quite very well that, you know, Mama Winnie Mandela actually wrote a letter that she said that it was from the future, the Africa that Africa of our future actually speaking to us, for us to unite and for us to basically work towards making it a better abode for all of us. Thank you so much for that. Ladies, I can't reiterate anything more that Professor Lumumba have said. And in this, at this point in time, I'd like to actually give an opportunity to a couple of questions for Professor Lumumba, or comments if there are any. I'll recognize the hands, and also if you are able to ask the question on the chat box, please go ahead and do that. And ladies and gentlemen, also may I please appeal to you to make sure that you have muted your devices, mute your mics, please, unless if you are actually chosen to speak. So I will recognize. Hello. Sam, can you please close your mic?
Unmute him. Sam, me, Sam. Hello? Hello?
Hello.
Can you hear me?
The host, can you kindly mute?
I can hear him. I can hear him loud and clear.
That's very good. Professor, I have been looking forward to seeing you in physical face, but you are very, very, I don't know what I say, muhenga in Swahili, but you know what I mean.
Sansana.
But you are very, very true. You are, see, Nje tuzungumza Kiswahili yani mimi ni Muganda, Rwanda, sijui kabila gani. Mimi ni Mwafrika tu. Siniambie natoka wapi. Ni Mwafrika sasa. Lakini hapa naishi Ulaya. Miaka 41 tangu nilikuja. Ruskin College sir. Tragedy graduates Ruskin College, you know. Tomboya, you know. Stephen Biko, you know. Mine is also complicated. Because that's what I have fought for. Self-reliance in the names of Nyerere. I mean, you know, you don't understand exactly what I would mean here. And ever since now that the late Magufuli came, if I say Africa, we don't need Europe. Europe is Africa. I talk about how invisible trade, sir. Unequal trade terms, there are 14 billion come into Western world and China and the rest of the country, developing all resources African develops, not ours, not developing our people, hence the poverty, you see. Ever since, I mean, you know, as you say, categorically accept that colonialism, direct colonialism was better than neo-colonialism. It is true. It is very true. And it is something we must and not only shake, but shake and subdue this so-called independence without being dependent. Thanks very much for your kind words and all the things. And therefore, we must be determined to fight whether he die or not. Like he died fighting.
Thank you.
I remember when he was fighting during Guinea-Bissau, and in Guinea when he was fighting with a frontline war. And thanks very much.
Thank you so much, Sam. Have you got a question?
And live in him.
My brother, Sam.
The question was that I was contributing only, but all I'm trying to say, madam, we must decide as we unite, we succeed, we divide, we fail, and CIA is in us as we are talking to them. As we hear now. You know what I can give example for some people like that. This we know very much until we articulate and demand the French is a danger. When French influence is in danger. Between China and France, we are in trouble completely, and we must react to make sure that Africa is independent, not by flags, not by president, not officers, but African independent completely, to benefit our people.
Rise up, poverty
is the worst disease than any other disease,
I'm sorry
and therefore
to cut
poverty
you.
must be eradicated.
Brother Sam, I am so sorry to cut you. Thank you so much. But there are, a number of other people who are waiting to speak.
Hello.
Thank you very much, brother, and remain active.
Yes, thank you. My co-host may be having some technical, so let me bring in Brother Albert. Albert, please put your questions to our Professor Lumumba. Questions.
Right. Thank you very much, host, for this opportunity. I would like to thank the professor for quite a very extensive and elaborate presentation. Looking back some few days back, the professor alluded to the fact that those who have authority to act have no ideas. And probably those who have the ideas don't have the authority to implement or ensure that things are done. So I just want to find out, bringing it to our level. Right now, I'm inspired, I'm motivated. So on the level, individual level, how do we carry out this agenda? Because looking at the propositions that the professor made, single currency, no restriction in travel, requires a shift in policies and the commitment of government, head of states, which is quite on the higher level. But I'm looking at the individual level, at the downgrade. What message should we carry to our people on the individual level so that they will also be inspired?
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Let me say that at the individual level, there is an element of self-sacrifice and dedication. But if we remain at the individual level, we'll be weak and our voices will be ignored. So what is important is that we should look out for each other, those who share in the same vision. This institute, which is now created for the purposes of giving practical meaning to the ideas of the Society for KWAME NKRUMAH, should be an institute that looks out for others. Many of you will agree with me and will know that you belong to possibly 20 organizations which are Pan-African organizations. And I keep on telling the ones in which I belong, the time has come and the time is now for us to organize a meeting at which we have a clear agenda, an agenda of engaging the people, an agenda of putting these issues that we talk about in an effective and in a clear manner so that we can begin to influence processes. You may ask, can it be done? Yes, it can. I'm quite certain that during the colonial period, there are those who said, how can we possibly defeat the colonialists? The colonialists was defeated. We now have in a number of African countries, those who occupy positions of political power who are doing everything to destroy Africa. They are dividing Africa along ethnic lines. They are dividing Africa along religious lines. They are dividing Africa in many ways. If you see the reemergence of coup d'etats, particularly in West Africa, recently in Chad, and of course in Mali now, the home of Guinea, the home of a great African, Ahmed Sékou Touré, is because the politician in Africa has succeeded in manipulating the people and in ensuring that they use office to abuse the people. So my answer is, we are beginning to find each other. A forum such as this in itself is indicative of the fact that we are opening our eyes. So you and I, and others in this forum, and others who are not in this forum, our duty is to look for each other. And when we do, and we begin to make demands of governments, you imagine, I always imagine to myself, that if all these Pan-African organizations were to have a common forum and to make a statement that during a single week, next year, or whichever time they choose, they are going to picket around the offices of government on a single day in South Africa, in all the 55 countries, to make demands and to submit memoranda to the political leaders. You imagine how Africa would be woken up, that people are speaking the same language from Banjul in the Gambia to Conakry in Guinea, to Djibouti, to Hargeisa in Somaliland. It will be amazing. That is how we should begin thinking. And when we begin thinking like that, I believe the ideas of the Osagyefo will be given practical meaning.
Hello.
Shay, thank you so much for that response, Professor, and for that question, my brother. I'm hoping that in our professor's response, he actually addressed some of the, he also responded to some of the questions that were going to come. But because of time, we're going to have to leave it there and move on to the next question, to the next speaker. But I'm hoping if our professor is able to remain with us, we can skip the break and put more questions to our beloved professor, because this is indeed an honor and an opportunity to have this one-to-one, you know, with and share and hear from him his wisdom and his knowledge. Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I'll definitely stay in a little longer to listen to my other colleagues.
Oh, wonderful. Thank you so much, Professor. It is indeed an honor to hear from you. I'm sure we all agree that we're all learning so much. And we're going to learn more as well from our next guest speaker as he comes. Let's welcome our brother, Jonas Atindi. And he served on the Ghana representative for the H. Brown Institute for Sub-Saharan Africa between 2004 and 5, and then between 2006 and 8, served as a country's director for the SIFE in Ghana as well. He's traveled extensively across Africa, and obviously in so doing, he's seen the needs and what's required. And he has also been involved in training the tertiary students on entrepreneurship entrepreneurship. And so he's going to be coming to us right now to speak about the AFCTA. And wow, it's so important that we begin to think of the African Continental Free Trade Agreement and what it can actually mean for small to medium-sized businesses. Without further ado, let's welcome our brother, Jonas Atindi. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And I want to thank Professor Lumumba for those sterling remarks. I want to thank the organizers of the event for putting together this very important forum. I don't think this forum could have come at a more timely or opportune time, if you will. When I look across the African continent, we see 54 or 55 countries, all that are free, politically speaking. But there's not a single one of them that are free, economically speaking. To me, this is not by coincidence. This is by design. What we need to ask ourselves is, why is it that the former colonial powers were more eager to grant us political independence, but have never since found it appropriate to free ourselves or to free ourselves from them, economically speaking? That to me suggests that, as Nkrumah said, the political union or unity of Africa is the means to which we can accomplish the economic integration of Africa, thereby making Africa. It is with that as a context that we can better understand why the Africa Free Trade Agreement or area is so important. If you look at the field of economics, there's a particular model in economics or a theory in economics called the flying geese. And the flying geese model basically stipulates or postulates that resources would flow from the more advanced economies to the less advanced economies. And this is simply because as economies grow and mature, the cost of resources begin to increase, thereby reducing their competitive edge. And so when you look at the history of the world in the past 200 years or so, find that the slave trade occurred, and the slave trade generated so much money for Europe that it started what is called the Industrial Revolution. That created economic surplus for Europe. Europe then used that economic surplus and invested it in the Americas, which gradually led to the emergence of America as a superpower. That excess surplus in the Americas was then invested in Asia, giving rise to the 7 tigers of Asia, and now, of course, China. Now, all eyes are on Africa. The wealth that Asia is creating is now being directed towards Africa. And the question that we should ask ourselves is this going to be another scramble for Africa? Is Africa ready to hold on to the reins of economic power and to be free from the economic interferences and political interferences of the rest of the world? The answer to that question would depend on how well we utilize the Africa Free Trade Area or Agreement. There are those who are skeptical about this free trade area, and they have a number of reasons why they don't believe that it will work out in Africa's favor. I am those who are more hopeful in that regard, and that Africa can indeed benefit from the free trade area if we avail ourselves properly to the opportunities that the free trade area can provide us. when you look at the structure of trade between Africa and the rest of the world, you find out that we export about 70 to 75% of our exports with the rest of the world is in the extractive sector. So we export raw materials, cocoa, raw beans of cocoa. We export gold, all these in the raw form. Whatever in the raw.
Slight challenge with our brother's network
But
there.
when you look at our structure is turned on its head, materials within the continent, we rather take. Hello, can you hear me? Hello,
Yes, you're back with us now, my brother Jonas. You're back with us.
Thank you. If you don't mind, we'll try to put off the video and see if that would stabilize my internet connection. Is that okay?
Yes, yes, that's fine.
Okay. So as I was saying that, but if you look at the structure of trade within Africa, among the African countries,
we seem to have lost our brother Jonas. My brother Jonas, are you there? Are you there, Jonas? Okay. I'm sure our brother will come back to us as soon as he can. Okay. And this is precisely why we as Africans need to take control, of all of our own networks and systems, because, we're in a situation in most of the countries where, we're not even in control of our own internet, our own satellite, and we get a substandard network service, We can't rely on others to do for us. We absolutely have to do for self. It seems we've completely lost our brother Jonas, but whilst we wait for him to come back, we still do have our Professor Lumumba in the house. Brother Elm, you had your hand up. You wanted to put a question to Professor before. Let me give you the opportunity to do so now, and please keep your question brief.
Excuse me, Sister Shanice. Before Brother M will come on, can you please find out if our next speaker, Comrade King Mapungo Joshua, is in the house?
Okay, I'll look through the participants. Will do.
Okay.
Yes. Hello, everyone. Ilem Rodney from Uganda, student at Makerere University. I am so grateful to be part of this. I'm a student of political science. So I was trying to understand what Professor Lumumba was trying to give us there, and what is emphasizing on is probably unity. But I see now, I want to quote Cheikh Anta Diop for he said that by isolating oneself from the historical framework, one becomes exhausted in a false battle without knowing it, slicing the air with sharp sword lashes, you get. And also talking about Karl Marx, say that to be radical is to understand things from the roots. And I'm so happy that Professor Lumumba has given us the insight of how things have been happening, but still there are two things that are also happening. How will we manage these issues, these prevailing problems in Africa with the existence of religion that is a converted kind of Christianity and these other new religions or denominations that have started, that are already in the continent, and as well the global capitalism. We are in the form of we're in the 21st century, and you're dealing with a generation that was born after the computers. We are called the bugs. And we are too complicated in that we are facing a lot of things. There's technological advancement against political retrogression. So we have to first understand, how are we going to compromise the technology that we are in right now and what is happening. And this will still take us back to the education system.
Thank you very much.
So,
thank you for that
thank
question.
Thank you very much. That is a question that, of course, needs a longer period to answer, but just very briefly, one of the things that we must recognize is that throughout history, and there is evidence, as you will note, from Europe, from the United States of America, that will answer your question, that unity is not for the faint-hearted. And sometimes when we talk about unity, we are understood to be very simplistic. We are not being simplistic about it. We are not saying that one day all the countries will go to Addis Ababa and then they say, we are now united. We are saying that unity is a process, it is constructive. And that is why when you look at some of the things that you now see under the Africa Agenda 2063 or the Africa Continental Free Trade Area that my brother was beginning to talk about, these are steps that are geared towards leading to a process that will ensure that the barriers that stand in our way will no longer exist, and effectively we will be reading from the same page. If you look at the history, for example, of the East African Community One, before it was dissolved in 1977, these were movements towards unity of some kind. If you look at what the reasons behind the creation of ECOWAS or SADC or the Maghreb, and under the auspices of the African Union, if we look at some of the things that have happened in the recent past, I've already mentioned the Africa Continental Free Trade Area, which deals with the removal of tariff and non-tariff barriers. I mentioned the Yamoussoukro Protocol that talks about the free flights in the airspaces of Africa. I talked about the Kigali Protocol that talks about free movement of persons and a single passport. And I'm talking about, I haven't talked about the Maputo Protocol or all those other protocols. All these are designed to move us in that direction. But don't think that the rest of the world wants Africa to unite. You have seen a very resurgent France that is trying to do everything within its powers, even if it denies, to ensure that Africa does not unite. See a resurgent United Kingdom post-Brexit that is doing everything within her power to ensure that Africa is divided. You are seeing a resurgent Russia that is trying to ensure that she has a military presence in Africa, a resurgent Turkey, and even more resurgent China, India. These are battles that we are going to have to fight, and we are going to have to fight them by understanding our enemy, and I'm using the word enemy loosely, but our competitors, if you want to be a little bit more charitable to them. And the danger is that sometimes, particularly now, we in Africa, we paralyze ourselves through too much analysis. And once again, even the tools of analysis that we use are not Afrocentric. They are tools that are handed down to us by other thinkers. There is no harm in understanding what Marx said. There is no harm in understanding what those English and American scholars say. But there is wisdom in using that knowledge for coming out with ideas that are Afrocentric and therefore sensitive to the realities of our continent. It is not for the faint-hearted. There'll be many people who will tell you it cannot be done, but history has demonstrated that the most difficult of things can be achieved by men and women who have focus and men and women who know that these battles are intergenerational and one generation passes over the baton to another. I believe that that is what I can say. But as I said at the beginning of answering the question, this would constitute a subject for a whole semester in your political science class.
Thank you so much for that response there. I'm sure.
Can I ask? Hello.
Let me bring you in, please.
Hello.
Yeah, can everyone put their device on mute? Thank you very much. Let me just check.
Hello.
Can everyone be muted? Can everyone put themselves on mute? Let me just mute all. I think I might be able to do it here myself, actually. Okay, so can I just check, is King Mapongo in the house, please? Is King Mapongo in the house? If you are, please unmute yourself. Okay, I can't see our brother King Mapongo in the list of participants, so I will assume that he's not in the house. Okay, I just want to thank, first of all, our professor for that very insightful response there. And as he says, it's up to us, this generation now, to seize the vision. The vision has been laid out for us, and it's for us to seize it and to run with it. We're clear in terms of our direction of travel. We're clear about what we need to be doing and what we want to achieve. And in our respective positions, in our respective organizations, in our respective institutions, what we need to be working towards as a people is our total independence and liberation. We want economic independence, borderless Africa. You know, we need to have one currency. We're clear about what we need to be doing, and we are the ones that need to make the African Free Trade Agreement a reality as well. Let's bring in our brother Kwame Gonza for a question. We'll seize the opportunity until our next speaker arrives.
Thank you so much, Sister Shanice. I would like to thank the professor. I've spoken to him before, and I was really glad to have spoken to him personally. I feel like a professor is the one who has sparked this desire and this interest in Pan-Africanism, and he has been a voice. I feel like he's a voice of, like in the Bible, they say, John, who's preparing the way for the coming of the Messiah. So first of all, I want to appreciate him for that. There's a couple of papers which I wrote, and he was able to read them through. And I appreciate him for that. What I wanted to ask is that if you look at Dr. KWAME NKRUMAH, he warned about these groups, the different groups which form in the different parts of the continent, the regional groups like ESC, ECOWAS, SADC, all these groups, because the groups have been used by the imperialists to penetrate and find out what Africa is doing and take advantage of it. Example is the Africa Continental Free Trade Area today. The Africa Continental Free Trade Area, yesterday I saw a message which was going around, and France is trying to organize countries like Ghana, South Africa, Nigeria, I think with Kenya also. And when you look at these are English-speaking countries, and France is trying to organize an electronic create an electronic platform. So how do we give support to such an enterprise that has already been penetrated by the neo-colonialists themselves to take advantage of it? Another example also is when you look at Ghana, where the secretariat is, you see that all the other manufacturing companies have run to Ghana because they have seen that the secretariat is there. Countries like Toyota, Nissan, VW, they have all put up assembling plants there in Ghana to try to look as if these companies or these cars which are manufactured there, which are assembled there, actually not manufactured there, they are manufactured in Ghana so that they can take advantage of the rest of the African continent. How are we going to deal with this scenario? When we look at Ghana, there is already a manufacturing company called Kantanka, but now it is being stifled. It's being stifled instead of being helped. When you go to Nigeria, we have Inoson, also is a car manufacturing company, but it is being stifled. So how are we going to deal with this problem?
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for that question, Brother
So thank you very much. In fact, you've asked a question that is very important, because when my good brother had started talking about the Africa Continental Free Trade Area, he talked about the skeptics. And I've been following the FTCA quite keenly. And what is amazing, most of the people who are writing about Africa Continental Free Trade Area are not Africans. And what then is happening is that they are creating the exact scenarios that you are talking about. For example, when you are going to talk about the removal of tariff and non-tariff barriers, and we are going to deal with the rules of origin. an item that is assembled in Ghana is going to be deemed to be a Ghanaian product, while the only thing that has happened in Ghana is that it has been assembled, and it is essentially a Chinese product. And I think it is important that we are awake to these realities. You can now see there is a scramble for Africa. You see, the Europeans are summoning African leaders. If they don't do so in Berlin, they invite them to Russia, they invite them to Beijing, they invite them to London, they invite them to Washington, they invite them to Beijing. Unfortunately, and I feel very sad when I say this, it appears that our political leaders are so susceptible to manipulation that they are incapable of seeing some of these schemes. When Americans come up with a GOA, their GOA is not designed to help Africa. When the Americans is talking about preferred trade, it is not meant to benefit the Africans. You'll have the crumbs. You'll have a few export processing zones done in your country, and you think that you have created, you'll rebase your economy and you think you are doing well, but poverty persists. And that is why it reminds me of a speech that was delivered by Julius Nyerere on the 6th day of March, 1997 in Accra, Ghana, on the occasion of the independence of Ghana. And the title of the speech, "Without Unity, There is No Future for Africa." And Nyerere, who was one of the people who had talked about gradual unity of Africa, said Nkrumah was right. We were wrong. Nkrumah was right because now that we have created these regions, East African Community, ECOWAS, and all these SADC and others, people are becoming a little bit parochial, and their parochialism is standing in the way of African unity. I now hope that as we move towards Africa Continental Free Trade Area, as we give meaning to Africa Agenda 2063, and as we recognize that the erstwhile colonizers, the European powers, the Russians and the Americans are working very hard to ensure that we are disunited and that we are reading from their script, we've got to think very differently. Somebody I see is raising the question, are they about sustainable development goals? You remember we had Millennium Development Goals, then they brought, so we are always reading to a script that is not written in Africa. In a nutshell, Kwame, I can't agree with you more. You are right, and it is your generation. It is our generation, your generation, that must now begin to bring these things to the fore. What our universities doing when all these articles are being written? What our government's doing in terms of research and development financing universities? If we don't do this, the Chinese are going to take over. The French are going to take over. Ask yourself, why should we have something called the Commonwealth? For whose benefit? If it is a body of equal partners, why is the British monarch the head of it? Why do we have an organization called former French-speaking countries? Why? Why do we have an organization called former Portuguese countries? Why? If we have the African Union, why can't we do our things under the African Union, and then we meet the rest of the world from the standpoint of the African Union? And this requires a people who are going to speak and to act. And perhaps this is where we are weak at. We have said, sometimes I think we have said enough, and that there is time for action. How that action is going to be implemented is what I am grappling with. And if anybody has ideas, that is the point at which we should now meet. How are we going to work at it so that we begin to harass governments in a creative manner so that they can begin to move in the right direction?
Rise up. Thank you so much, Professor Lumumba, for that response.
Thank you, Prof. Let me jump in, Sister Charlize, just to follow up from Prof. Isbongani Mankewe in South Africa. Prof, interestingly, thanks for the historical perspective. I just want to be more futuristic, listening to the Africa Continental Free Trade presentation that couldn't finish. I think fundamentally to what you just raised now is the mobilization of capital going forward. I'm sure Nkrumah will agree with me
with you too. Hello?
Yes, I can hear you.
I'm saying, I'm sure Nkrumah will agree with me with you that the concept that we are struggling to really conceptualize and put into practice is the development. I think you will agree that somehow the way things are, our institutionalization, development both to precede the conceptualization of democratization. Only you will agree on that. Now, when we deal with the institutionalization of the African society, you will agree that if we are to build a capital, we need to categorize capital according to the three fundamentals. That is social capital, that is cultural capital, that is economic capital. Now, pity, the challenges that we are faced with in the African continent, I'm sure a lot of scholars will agree on that. That one, social capital, in the word of South African lexicon, is captured by democratization. Social capital is captured by democratization. That is challenge number one towards Pan-Africanism. Cultural capital is characterized by deracination, uprootlessness of African people. The result is in a state of bankruptcy.
My brother Bonga and I, we need
economic
to
capital.
Question.
Economic capital is characterized by financialization. Those three fundamentals, they build our institutions. Should we have institutions that are built on the basis of our cultural capital, social capital, we'll avoid the situation of financialization that is characterizing the economic capital. Now I am saying those are the challenges that the Pan-Africanism is to deal with to address the issue of development. Development is a fundamental concept that is going to make the realization of the Africa Continental Free Trade Area real for Africa.
Thank you so much, my brother Bonga.
Just to finish up, if we are unable to contemplate development around value chains towards industrialization to build Africa, the 2063 that we are looking at, we are not going anywhere. Therefore, the mobilization of capital around these three, the unrootedness of the capture of social capital by democracy, the derationalization of our culture to deal out with the financialization, it will lead us to better institutions.
Thank you.
Like we
Thank you, Bob and I. Thank you.
Yes. I think that what you are saying just in one line is so important that I personally would also want to benefit from your articulation, perhaps at a different forum, because this forum and the question and answer session does not do justice to what you are trying to explain, because they are very deep issues, which if we don't wrap our minds around, we'll just be scratching the surface. I can't agree with you more. And I thank you very much for that articulation. I look forward to engaging with you outside of this forum.
Wonderful. Thank you so much.
Can I come in?
Just a moment, please. Let me just check if we have King Mapongo in the house as yet. Do we have our King Mapongo in the house? Okay, no, we don't, but I believe our brother Jonas may actually be back. So let's give our brother Jonas 5 minutes so that he can complete and conclude his presentation. So can everyone please put their devices on mute? Let's bring back in our brother Jonas for 5 minutes so that he can conclude his presentation, and we will go back into Q&A until our brother we're joined by our brother King Mapongo. So we're very privileged here to have had this extended Q&A session, but please hold for now. Thank you. Brother Jonas.
Sister Shanice?
Yes, my brother.
Yeah, please, before Comrade Jonah comes in, I would like to acknowledge the presence of Honorable Dr. Nobole Nkambane, Deputy Minister from South Africa, who is present here with us. She'll be speaking in one of the events, I think on Thursday. So I just want to recognize her presence and to inform everyone that she's here with us, and she'll be speaking on Thursday during our next event. Thank you very much. I think Brother Jonas can come in now. Yeah.
Thank you so much. We're deeply honored indeed. Thank you. Let's go over to Brother Jonas. 5 minutes, my brother.
Okay, thank you. Sorry for the erratic connection on my end. And so let me just wrap up using the last 5 minutes here. So the way I see it, based on the backdrop that I've given, we have two options as the African continent. We have two options. It's either we open up our economy and have no free trade agreement, or we have a free trade agreement. The question we have to ask ourselves is, under which scenario will African entrepreneurs and Africans in general be protected? Is it under a no free trade agreement or under a free trade agreement? With a free trade agreement, which is the first step to the process of full economic integration, we would have preferential treatment given to goods and services originating in Africa. And so if I am sending goods to South Africa and Europe, or let's say Germany is also sending goods to South Africa, my goods would have a privilege over the goods that are coming from Germany. And that is only happening because under the free trade agreement, there is preferential treatment for goods coming from within the continent, as opposed to goods coming from outside the continent. So that's the first step that we have to recognize. It gives us a fighting chance. Without it, we are sitting ducks. Now, whether we like it or not, investment from China, from Europe, from America is coming. It has been coming and it will continue to come. The question is, how can we build capacity for ourselves and thereby compete with them on equal footing? The free trade agreement, it is what is going to give us the platform, the opportunity to engage in that fight so that eventually we can have an economic base to compete effectively with those countries. Now, someone mentioned, I believe it was a good professor himself, and there was a question that came from the audience that talked about the root of origin. The rules of origin as we speak is a major bone of contention. In fact, they haven't even yet concluded negotiations on the specifics because it's such a contentious issue. So basically the rules of origin dictates that. And so it takes care of the question that somebody asked about Ghana assembling cars from China and then exporting them to another African country. What the rules of origin state is this. And again, it protects an entrepreneur. If Ghana is to, for example, so let's say the Toyota and Nissan vehicles, the VW, that are establishing an assembly plant in Ghana, they will not qualify to export under the free trade agreement unless, and this is the key, unless there is a significant portion of the production process that originates in Ghana. And so that is the whole purpose of rules of origin. Rules of origin stipulates the economic nationality of the product. Where is the product coming from? Is it a Ghanaian product or is it a Chinese product?
Yes.
A vehicle that is imported from China with no input in Ghana, apart from you assembling it, has an economic nationality that says it's from China and therefore will not benefit. The only commodities that will benefit are commodities that have a significant input within a member state. And so if I import, say, a raw material from China, engage in value-added processes in Ghana to an extent that where now that economic nationality is Ghanaian, then it qualifies. What that does is that the value chain within Africa would deepen, as opposed to you just importing something from abroad and selling it to another country in Africa. That cannot happen within the free trade agreement. Now, the question is how much of the raw materials have to be sourced within Africa for it to qualify. If you set it too high, let's say you have to have 50% of value additions within member states, then you neglect the countries in Africa that are not so industrialized, and so that they will not be able to have 50% value additions within their country. So if you set it too low, then of course everybody can qualify. Currently, I believe it's at least 15% has to be added locally, but that is the entry bar. As we progress, this will gradually increase. So today it is 15%, 5 years time, 25%, 30%, 40, 50, 60, until a point where now most of the goods traded are not only originating from here, but all of the processes, the raw materials and all other secondary industries will be right here on the continent. And so it's important that we understand that. And
Jonas. 1 minute.
Yes, okay, and see that, yes, and see that this thing, although right now it looks murky, the fact is that without it, where are we going to be?
Exactly.
So we can either choose to fight, to come to a gunfight with no weapon, or we can come to a gunfight with a sword, a cutlass, or some other form of weapon. I would rather come to the gunfight with some form of weapon than to come there empty-handed with only prayers. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Brother Jonas. A lot of food for thought there. And for all of those on the battlefield, we have a choice. We have the power to make choices. It's up to us whether we buy made in China or made in Africa. If we turn our back on made in China, then Africa will prosper from our purchase. If we turn our back on made in Africa and buy Chinese, then we are empowering, economically empowering the Chinese, for example. So we have choices, and it's about time we started thinking before we spend our money, who we're spending our money with and whose economy we're actually prospering. So rise up, Brother Jonas. Hopefully we'll have time to come back and ask you some more questions at the end. Okay, family, I'm sure most of you can see that we actually have our next guest speaker in the house, none other than King Mapongo. We are absolutely honored. I'll take on the points that was made earlier about spending too much time doing introductions, but I just want to say that our brother Joshua Mapongo, a formidable and outstanding member of our community in terms of our struggle for liberation. He certainly educated me enormously as I watch his food for thought videos. And if you're not watching his food for thought videos, you're missing out considerably. In these videos, we are enlightened on a daily basis. King Mapongo is also written extensively, developed, produced, and presented, and anchored on TV programs. He does a whole range of shows and debate programs, and he has presented on educational channels as well as others. King Mapongo is the CEO of the Institute Farmers of Thought. He also has two organizations, Zimbabwe Indigenous Movement, ZIM, and AIM, Africa Indigenous Movement, which looks to house all of the intellectual property of how to transform Africa, a template for every other nation. Without further ado, let's welcome our brother, King Joshua Mapongo.
I'm greatly humbled, and thank you to my esteemed friends, Professor Lumumba, Julius Malema, and other contributing members on this platform. What a time to be alive. What a time to witness and be testimony and bear testimony to the transformation that is happening on the continent. What a time of a great awakening. What a time for change. And when the young African warriors across the vast land of this great continent are beginning to open up their eyes and realize the value not only that the continent has, but the value of decision-making as the present generation is securing that future for the children that are coming. We are greatly honored to be on this platform as farmers of thought, as African Indigenous Movement, and as UCA, United Kingdoms of Africa, and finally as ZIM, Zimbabwe Indigenous Movement, to present to the African continent and the greater African family in diaspora, mentioning the amount of change that we are incumbent to begin to think, to implement methods that challenge the status quo, neocolonialism, apartheid, segregation, and colonial oppression that the continent has suffered for the longest of time. However, our revolution is impeded, or it is limited, or it is impaired by the colonial system. Simply said, that the colonial masters were very cunning in their program to design a program which took the African child from education to economics to politics and religion and spirituality, and create for the African child a seamless program that adopts these children as early as infancy and then marinates them in this colonial system so that their fashion, their medicine, their religion, their appetite is altogether whitewashed with European appetites. Our greatest weakness in this struggle has been the educated people who come around now from Europe, from Massachusetts University, from New York, from Edinburgh, from Australia, coming back to Africa with seemingly brown color on their faces, but their mindset has been fully captured by the colonial system. By the time they come here, they are not Africans, they are coconuts who are brown on the outside, but white on the inside. These are our technocrats. These are our lawyers. These are our doctors. These are our political commissars. These are our commissioners. These are our directors in government institutions. And when they sit in these offices, from Department of Education to Department of Transport to Department of Tourism and all other departments, they are not there to change the system, but to maintain the system. Some of them appear back in Africa as CEOs of pharmaceutical companies, retail companies, media companies. The list is endless. But when they get into these offices, their appetite for a Eurocentric diet of entertainment, education, fashion, and art and media is not an African narrative. It is a European narrative. They want to convert a Zambian channel to become a New York channel. They want to convert a Zimbabwean channel into a British channel. They want to convert a South African channel into a Hollywood channel. Then you find that the diet that our children are eating is altogether a colonial diet. We are here to celebrate KWAME NKRUMAH. And in that celebration, I will not miss the debate that I saw, or the argument or discussion that I saw between KWAME NKRUMAH and Julius Nyerere, which became very heated when Nkrumah was saying, let's change now. Let's change this thing now. And KWAME NKRUMAH says, Julius Nyerere, KWAME says, let's change now. And Nyerere says, let's do it stage by stage. Let's be progressive so that we don't frustrate the colonial system. I must say, 60 years later, we are still doing step by step. And if we look at the amount of colonization and change that are needed, they are not step by step. A revolution does not take negotiations. For the oppressor will never donate freedom to you, according to the words of Martin Luther King. The oppressed does not need to ask for advice or seek for relief from the oppressor because he's enjoying the benefit. The oppressed needs to stand up and say no. And when we say no, we are really reliving the legacy of Kwame Nkrumah, who was more agent in his implementation strategy. We are aware that the process we are suffering under is taken 400 years to mature to where we are right now. And if this generation will still be negotiating with the oppressor, I can guarantee you we still have another 60 years to go. And by the time we're there, we're in the global village. My question is, when we are in the global village, what will the African be in that global village? Who will be the king in that global village? And I can tell you now for free that the African will still be a slave in that global village. And the European economists will be the masters of that global village. Question to the politicians, is this the Africa you are dreaming about? Is this the Africa you are taking us to? The concept of value chains, which I hear you talking about. Africans dig their gold from Ghana to Johannesburg, to Sierra Leone, to Mali, and they move that gold to Britain. What do they do with the gold? They put it in a strong room, in the basement of the central bank and the house of the Queen herself. How many utensils are made out of gold? Only a few teaspoons and a few forks. The rest of it, it is kept as a guarantee to the currency of that country. Question to all of you who are educated. Then why do we sell gold to Europe and America? And then we go borrow money and they use our gold as guarantee for the currency that they're giving us. Why are we exchanging gold, which is a material, to receive paper money? Who has money, the one who has gold or the one who is printing photocopies? African economies are built on looking for photocopied paper money. Instead of every country digging its gold, digging its diamonds, digging its platinum, and storing it in the country and guarantee their currency to the amount of resources that they have. What does that mean, therefore? If you must sell iron ore to China, stop selling iron ore to China. Find out what are the Chinese doing with your iron ore. Produce the materials that China needs in China. Then send off materials, goods, processed goods to China. By so doing, in improving the value chain of the raw material, you are creating jobs for gold, you're creating jobs for platinum. Even the concept of uranium. Iran, Iraq, America, North Korea are buying uranium from Africa, which is the third largest producer in the world, to make nuclear weapons. But there's no country in Africa that is producing the same nuclear weapons, which are going to be used against the very same people. Will you be sad if I tell you that 110, 15 years from now, when Africa is being bombed by America and Europe, they'll be using the uranium that you sold to them as raw material, and they're able to convert it into bombs to come and kill you as Africans? This is the foolishness that our presidents and ministers will take time to wake up from that sleep. We don't need to borrow an extra dollar. The amount of money Europe has stolen from Africa is enough. We still have enough on the continent to benefit the Africans. As I'm concluding, I want to challenge Professor Lumumba. I want to challenge all other presenters on the ground. I am not good in mathematics. I'm good in culture. But I want to throw a curveball to you. Can you pick up a piece of paper and write the following notes? Number one, what is the value of our forests? In that value, include indigenous crops, medicines, flowers. What's the value of the African water? In that includes the Zambezi, Limpopo, Orange Free, Nile, and etc. Because now the world will be in need of water in the next 30 years. It will be a rare commodity, clean water, I mean. And Africa houses more than 40 to 50% of the cleanest water in the world. What is the value of that water? Number three, Give me the value of the human resource. How many educated people are in Africa? And if you have to pay each one of them at the end of the month, what is the value? Number 5, what is the value for our waters, our seas, in terms of fisheries? Number 6, what is the value of our minerals as a continent? From diamond to gold, platinum, chrome, tin, manganese, name the rest of it. Do a full research and tell me, including oil, what is the value of Africa? Number 7, tourism and sacred sites. How much value is Kenya attracting? The Serengeti, Zimbabwe ruins, Victoria Falls, some of the most beautiful spaces in Congo, Namibia have not yet been discovered, but they're there. What is their value? And ultimately, what is the value of our air? I'm looking at electricity generated from wind. What's the value of our air? That includes our sunshine in terms of harvesting the sun into solar energy. So we have our air, we have our water, we have our land, and the people on the land. Now add up all those values together, you'll have a crazy figure that comes out on the right as your total of the value of Africa. And now take that value, divide it by 1.8 or 2 billion people. The figure that you come up with at the bottom there is the value of every African child, educated or uneducated. Until our leaders know the value of the African, we continuously suffer in poverty. Africa is not poor. Our leaders are poor. Africa is not poor. Our politicians are poor. Africa is not poor. Our resources are in abundance. But what can you do when our leaders are in a brothel where they are selling African resources to the highest bidder for a house in Mauritius, for a house in London, for a house in Florida? The disaster of African colonization did not happen with politicians. It happened with the royal houses. That the ones who were made to sign treaties with the Royal House of London and Germany. Until African politicians understand that they cannot twist the arm of the European royal house with politics, because they're only there for 5 years. Royalties, Queen of Britain has been there for 70 years by now. We needed to understand why was it important for Britain to destroy African royalties and make all of us subjects of the royal crown into the Commonwealth, which are now called common poverty. What will it take? It's a new breed of leaders who understand the neo-colonialistic mindset, the politics of the continent, the international political conversation, and begin a new trajectory, a new narrative that respects that every African on the ground and in diaspora are entitled to the resources that are on their land. You don't need to go to school. You don't need to do anything. The fact that you are born on the continent, you are a shareholder in the resources of that country. The same thing that Europe does, the same thing that Britain does, the same thing that UAE does. Why do the Chinese come here and the Arabs come here and they want to make us Muslims? When we go to their countries, they kill us and they butcher you for carrying a Bible in the United Emirates, in UAE. But when they come here, they want a mosque, they want a church. Right now in Zimbabwe, in Mzarabani, I got intelligence yesterday, they are paying people in the communities to become Muslims so that they cannot protest against the drilling of oil in Mzarabani, in Zimbabwe. For Muslim is for sale. They can pay for people to join the church so that they can frustrate the economic development processes. Who can doubt, therefore, that spirituality is a hinging factor on African revolution and African transformation? because the African right now cannot kill a white man, because the white man looks like the Jesus who saves them from his sins. So we are suffering from a disease of the Messiah mentality, where iconographically we have been manipulated to think that the white man looks like Jesus. Therefore, the white man is a cousin to our oppressor. And if this God oppresses me on earth and he wants to take me to heaven, I don't want to go to that heaven. I'm already in hell right now. How can I share heaven with a white man who cannot share a piece of land with me on my own land? How do you come to my own house and tell me when I should sleep with my wife? This is arrogance of the highest order, where the colonialists are managing our diets, our health, our reproduction, our minerals, our finances, and our political systems, using this Roman Dutch law. And I want to apologize, my honorable Professor Lumumba, you are an honorable lawyer in that space. But I want to see you start moving towards the idea of indigenous governance systems, because there's no way an African government will be free from the colonial system when he's still using the colonial judicial system. We can't at this age, 400 years, be putting on wigs like some small little stupid European people and hope we can transform our own societies. How did Rwanda fix their crisis? What role does indigenous governance systems play? How did the Africans bank his money before colonials came here? What is the value of agriculture? Why do we need land? For agriculture, for mining, for sacred sites and worship. For our churches are not in buildings, but in the canopy and the cathedral of nature itself. When you withdraw land from the African, you have removed spirituality from them. And without spirituality, the African is not connected. We can't talk politics and economics without addressing the very essence of what makes us Africans. Yes, ask me, what makes a Chinaman a Chinaman? Is their yoga? Is their karate? Is their traditions? What makes an Indian an Indian? Is their gods, their fashion, and their food? What makes an American an American? Is their Halloween night? Is their Christmases, their candlelights, and their Christmas trees? What makes an African an African? Here we are, educated as we seem to be. It looks like education is a passport to escape from being an African. And it's a shame, and a shame that our present educated community have become beneficiaries to a colonial system, and they cannot challenge the system because their retirements are included in that system. You take a black man right now from Edinburgh University, you make him a CEO of Lonro in South Africa. How does he change Lonro when his pension schemes are included there and he stands to benefit 5 million on his retirement? Impossible. So the educated communities have become the Uncle Toms, the rear guards, the protectors of the colonial system. I want to say to Africa, time for change is now. Every African must benefit from the resources that are on the ground. The political system cannot come to us for votes, and then they come back 2 weeks later when they win the votes, and they're bringing 16 bodyguards and 8, 9, 10 cars full of guns to protect them from us who voted them into power. There's something corrupt right there. It can't be right that you are protecting yourself from us, like a pastor walking into a church with 6 bodyguards on every side. Protecting you from who? From the church members who are giving you the money that you're looking for. Something does not add up right here. Someone is lying to somebody. For what it is worth, I want to celebrate Kwame Nkrumah in his words that Africa must unite. A borderless Africa, one army, one university, one currency. Africans can be free to move in Africa. One language. Europe, America, China, all the continents are united by currency and language. And until Africa begins to consider Swahili as a bridge to that jungle, create one stock exchange in Africa, which is backed up by the minerals, the oils of the continent, we shall consistently be changing hyenas with foxes. All political leaders on the continent, I challenge you. I beg to be challenged. They're not going into power to change the trajectory. They're going into power to sit on the same chair that the colonialists were sitting on. We have new oppressors on the ground, and those oppressors are black. I thank you.
Thank you very much, brother. Thank you. God bless you.
Thank you so much. Let me hand over to my co-chair. Wow. What an education we've been getting over these last couple of hours. Shamir, let me go over to you. Unmute yourself, please. Shamil, unmute yourself.
Yes, thank you so much, Shanice and Kimabonga. Thank you so much for those wonderful truths. And in fact, as you were talking, you reminded me of a book that I read quite a number of years ago called Miseducation of the Negro. And in it, he said that all you have to do is to control a man's thinking. The rest is history. And I do actually, concur with you that indeed we need to change the status quo in order for us as Africans to move forward. And so, ladies and gentlemen, I see that time is not exactly on our side for the questions, but I'd like to take this opportunity to actually welcome Dr. Benjamin Anyagwe. I see the chat box is actually on fire right now, and I really hope that we could actually capture these comments and these questions in order for us now to continue the conversation, when we actually have much more time. When it concerns Africa, we will never stop talking, because this is us. This is everything else that needs to be changed. And all of that. So please let me welcome Dr. Benjamin Anyagwe to give us the closing remarks. Dr. Benjamin.
We don't have to have Dr. Benjamin with us at the moment, so that gives us an opportunity maybe to have one or two questions put to King Joshua Maponga. But whoever we bring in, can I say they must just ask a question, please, and not make great lengthy statements. Thank you.
One question to Dr. Maponga, and let me see who I can pick. Please, I see Ellen Rodney. Please go ahead and ask the question. Just the question, please. Make it brief.
Yes, thank you very much for giving me another chance to say something. I wanted King Maponga to tell us how we can maneuver with religion and this global capitalism amidst all these prevailing problems in Africa. Thank you.
I will not waste your time. We need to organize a container and put all these foreign gods in one big box in a container and drive it to the sea and just dump them there. I think their welcome is expired. Enough of the black devil and the white Jesus. If there was a time where Africans needed to wake up, is to wake up and see a black God and a white devil. We cannot be maimed and harassed by Muhammad and Allah, who have never loved Africans. Slavery is happening right now in Saudi Arabia, in Iran and Iraq. We have girls from Kenya who are in prostitution and slavery as we speak right now, under the nostrils of what they say is the most peaceful religion, which is Islam. I've had enough of Zoroastrianism. I've had enough of Buddha. I've had enough of Muhammad, enough of Jesus. Put them in one big container, move them up the Atlantic Ocean in the midst of nowhere and dump them there. If this white God cannot deal with the African, he's foreign to us. If he's scared of the African drum, he never created us. If he's scared of the black color that we are, then he never created us. How can we relate to a God who does not relate to us? Indians have Indian gods. White men have white gods. The question I'm asking you again, Why do you find yourself bowing and kneeling in front of a white god when you're a black man? I thank you.
I have a question, please.
I'm so sorry, please. At this point in time, let me just find out if we have Dr. Anyangra.
I have a question, please.
Excuse me, sir, please, wait a minute. Let me just find out if we will have that time for you to ask the question. But in the meantime, can you please mute yourself? Do we have Dr. Benjamin, please?
Yes. Yes.
Okay, thank you so much. Please, at this point in time, I'd like to welcome Dr. Benjamin Anyagre to give us the closing remarks. It has been such a very wonderful ride of learning, and not only that, but literally challenging, our mindset, literally challenging the status quo, literally challenging everything else. And I'm quite happy that this is indeed the legacy that KWAME Nkrumah wanted us to continue, the kind of conversation that KWAME Nkrumah wanted us to continue to have. So, Dr. Benjamin, please.
Shamir, it seems Dr. Benjamin is having some problems. Just give the chance to our senior comrade, Jojo Hicks, to ask his question, please.
Okay, great.
It seems many people are still willing to listen,
Thank you very much.
5 minutes is not going to be too bad since Prof is here with us.
Can I ask my question, please? Thank you very much. My question is geared towards both Mr. Mapongo and Professor Lumumba. Since we're celebrating Nkrumah and we know Nkrumah's message resonates across Africa, isn't it about time we set up an Nkrumah, some form of Nkrumah educational chapter in every African country to start teaching the children about Nkrumah? What do you think about that? Because right now, Ghana is even engaged. The present president of Ghana is engaged in destroying the memory and the legacy of Nkrumah. And we need this man more so now than ever. Thank you.
Absolutely. I'll give that question to either Dr. Maponga or to Professor Lumumba to just touch on that. But very important point, actually.
I'll allow my senior to go first. That is the Dr. Lumumba. If he can respond first, I have a short answer for that. And my answer will be very brief. You as a doctor, you as professionals, you are willing to spend money on buying weaves, makeup, buying cell phones and expensive cars. You're not willing to put $10 into that organization. So don't tell us what we must do. The question is, what are we going to do as an organization, as African children? And until we are prepared to make that transformation, nothing will happen. Nothing stops you from calling 10, 15 people on the African continent with $1 each from 900,000 or 1 million people in Africa who can contribute to that, to setting up that institution and run. We don't run on tears. We don't run on water. It runs on money. And until you as people are prepared to put your value in money, what makes the Europeans powerful and the Americans, they are willing to put their money for their propaganda. But Africans would rather spend money on wines and champagnes than on transformation. And yet you want to see Africa changing. You have leaders amongst you that you don't respect. And when you respect them, you don't fund them. And yet you expect change. I've received a number of comments. People say, we talk too much. We talk too much. We're doing little. How do I do little? I'm looking after my family. I'm also struggling in the same system together with you until you make a decision as to how do we take this thing to another level. Financially, this remains a desktop discussion. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Maponga. Oh my God. Okay, so Professor Lumumba, please, if you'd like to also have a go.
Like we just lost Prof.
Okay. I think I can take one last question while we're still waiting for Dr. Benjamin. I recognize your hands down. Unmute yourself, please. Sam, please unmute. Okay.
I'm talking about politics of favor and massive realistic state power, social.
Sorry, Sam, there is so much interference coming from your phone. We're not actually hearing what you're saying. Can you try and eliminate the interference and try again to ask your question? Thank you.
Okay, now, can you hear me now? Much better? Hello?
Yes, that's better.
I was trying to, I mean, that you made Joshua Mpang was trying to at least
So sorry, Sam. We're not hearing you. So sorry.
Now, can you hear me now? Hello?
Very faintly. Let's try one more time, Sam. Otherwise, we're going to have to move on because of time.
I think
But
we have
maybe
Dr.
he can type his question. He can type his question.
Thank you
If
so
there's
much.
an interference, then we can respond from there. He can type it on the chat box there on the question side, and we can try and see how we can assist him.
Brilliant suggestion. Brother Sam, I hope you heard that. Please type your question in the chat and mute your phone. We're getting a lot of interference from your line. Yeah, thank you. Do we have anyone else who wants to take the opportunity to put a question to King Joshua Mapongo? Okay, let me quickly jump in the meantime. King Mapongo, you know, so much I could say in response to what you said, because it's just been phenomenal learning. I'm in the UKKK here, and what I do know is that they have the power to print money. America has the power to print money. So sometimes if we're looking at the situation from an African-centered perspective, and we're trying to resolve our problems within their economic framework, I think I want to just highlight the extent to which they actually control, monopolize, and dictate to Africans what they can and they cannot do. It's been highlighted here that the wealth, you know, the extent of the wealth that actually exists within Africa. However, Africa is not allowed to print money. And who determines the value of Africa's money as well anyway? We've got to remove ourselves, just agree with all those who said we need to remove ourselves, not just from their legal system, but from their economic system, their education system, their system of governance. Democracy doesn't work for us. They so-called gave us independence, but it was just a facade. And I've just got to get this in. You know, we absolutely, totally, at the moment, are still a captured people. Our minds have been captured through their education system. Our land is still very much under their control in terms of the constitutions. Our governance is being controlled by them through the puppet leaders that we have. Our education system, our economic system. We have to totally detach ourselves and remove ourselves from these colonial structures, colonial institutions, and stop taking the money from the World Bank and the IMF and the likes, and indebting ourselves on the basis, as you said, the bits of paper that they call money, that they have valued greater than gold and silver and platinum and all of the other minerals and resources that Africa has on its land. I agree, time for change, absolute time for change. I can see we've got a hand. So
the mathematics that I gave you, that formula of the value of the continent, that is the basis of our stock exchange as a continent. Then we can print money to the value of our oil. We can print money to the value of our gold, our platinum, our manganese, our oil, our fish, our forests, and our waters. And tell me which currency in the world can stand in the face of an African currency that is backed up by real gold. And by the way, we don't need to dig this gold. You can, now there's technology where you can put a satellite on top of the land and determine how much gold is under the ground. Since they are digging it up and banking it in their own basements, why do we need to dig it? We can simply establish that there is so many tons here, so many tons there, so many tons there. And when they are where they are, We can print money on the top side that verifies and that agrees with the amount of resources that we have. So we don't need to destroy our vegetation and destroy our land, trying to dig up these minerals and creating craters and creating dungeons and potholes in our own country, destroying vegetations and destroying our environment to dig these minerals, unless you want to use them for practical tools. But when it comes to gold and diamond, it's a waste of time, because that whole process is only based on change of geographical location. You take the gold from Congo, from Somalia and Mali, and go and bank it up and put it in a basement in another geographical location. So why move the geographical location when you already know where it is? So we need an African stock exchange where all the countries on the African continent can come together and have their own stock exchange. Tanzania, what's your value? Zimbabwe, what's your value? South Africa, what's your value? Congo, what's your value? All these values put together, they create a basis on which the African Union, I feel bad when I talk about the African Union, because that name, what his name, Farke, whatever his name is, we're sitting on that being a French colony, an abuser of the African system, who has no agenda or plan for the African people. And he sits around to drive the African agenda. He's just received another term now for another 5 years. Hell no, where we are going in the next 5 years. One single project of an African stock exchange can change the business in which Europeans, Chinese are doing business in Africa through a centralized economic system that governs even the poorest of the African countries. Because in our resources, even the poorest country and small country like Lesotho can benefit from the resources that are in Congo. Because when we are in a unit, all of us stand in strength. But in our weaknesses, how can a country of 900,000 people like Botswana challenge 1.4 billion people in China? How can a continent fight a country? It's a losing battle. But when we stand as a continent with our resources in one basket, and the international community is coming to do business in Africa, there's a central place where business is being discussed. These are the protocols I thought African Union by now, 60 years after KWAME NKRUMAH, will have those systems in place so that we can deal with World Bank, we can deal with IMF, we can deal with European Union, we can deal with the rand, we can deal with the yen, and we can deal with the pound and the euro dollar. For what it is worth, we are not poor. Our poverty is our leadership that is busy entangled in neo-local political German colonized demarcations of countries and borders. Africa was shared amongst colonialists on a dinner table with a pencil in the hand. You take here, you take here. My grandmother on my father's side is from Mozambique. My grandmother on my mother's side is from South Africa. My grandfather on my father's side is from Zululand. My grandfather on my father's side is from Tanganyika, from Zimbabwe. Great Gruswa, which is Menemtapa. I have 6 countries that are locked up in me. And yet I must get a passport and a visa to travel, to go and visit my grandparents because of the colonial borders. This does not work. What made America great, 52 states came together, locked themselves up together, opened up their borders, created a mega economy which benefits people from Florida to Detroit, from Cincinnati to California. And everyone is able to benefit from the great American dream. Question for you: what is the African dream? I thank you.
We thank you so much. We thank you, King Joshua. Shamil.
Yes, oh my God. So, ladies and gentlemen, in closing, just before I announce when next we're going to be having this fire chat conversations, allow me just to give you like a brief synopsis of what was actually being discussed tonight. So, ladies and gentlemen, Dr. Maponga gave us a food for thought. He said that what is the value of our forest? What is the value of our water? What is the value of our human resource, our fisheries? What is the value of our minerals? What is the value of tourism, our tourism? What is the value of the air that we breathe? Ladies and gentlemen, go home and think about it. Go home and think about it. And then Professor PLO Lumumba, he came as well, and he did actually take us through the background of, Kwame Nkrumah. He did say the man was just as passionate as he was direct. I don't know. This means that he was willing to say the things that made people uncomfortable for the future of Africa. And then in that regard, he also was, he basically, we are where we are today. I mean, you look at the Africa Continental Free Trade Area, which is a flagship project of the Agenda 2063. I remember, and I'll reiterate this to you, if you don't have that letter, go look for it. It's a letter from the future that was actually written by Nkosazana Dlamini Zuma. I remember very well when he was during the, the Africa Heads of State meeting, when she read that letter, people thought she was crazy. But look at us today. We are talking about Agenda 2063, which is a vision that Kwame Nkrumah had and our forefathers, and they put it down. And somebody said there is an Africa that is in the future that is crying for all of us to actually work toward. And so with that, ladies and gentlemen, we had so much to learn. We had so much to learn, from the comments, from the questions, and all of that. And I want to believe that indeed, may the legacy of Kwame Nkrumah continue to live on through us by implementing. Joshua Maponga asked us a question and said, what are you doing in your space to make sure that this Africa that we want is a reality? It doesn't take a government. It takes each one of us, a collective, united, each one of us doing something about it. And so, ladies and gentlemen, from me, Shamila Bossi, we are going to be having the next session on the 17th of this month from 4 p.m. this time around to 6 p.m. Ghana time. And so I believe that you will be able to actually see the link and join us next time. It was such a pleasure being with my sister Shanice on this wonderful platform. And thank you to the organizers for doing this. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Absolutely. So I guess it's safe for me to call it a wrap. Sister Shanice, it has been a wonderful pleasure. And to all the speakers, thank you so much for that, for that phenomenal, informative session. I definitely won't be able to sleep being the Pan-African that I am. I'm going to be jotting down what's next for Africa. So I believe that you'll do the same as well. From me to you, it has been a wonderful time. Thank you, everybody. Thank you so much, and goodbye.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, King. Thank you.
I don't want Agenda 2063. I want Agenda 5063. 400 years program. Then we are talking business.
Yes, I think for those who want to stay and continue to talk, can I ask the organizers if it's okay to do so? For those
No problem. We are free because we seldom have this opportunity to interact with King Joshua. Yes. So I think.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Opportunity for those who want to ask more questions.
Thank you so much for giving us your blessing. Because there were a few hands that were up that didn't get a chance to answer the question. If they're still in the house, you can quickly jump in now with your brief points.
I was trying to see. You can hear me now?
Yes, we're hearing you now, Sam.
You see, madam, what my pang is very provocative completely. You feel when he's speaking. He says things, you sleep with it, you know everything, think about daily, and we are to do anything about it. But because, madam, we have failed totally, as we said, we are slave mentality, of a colonial mentality, we're white. We are, as he said, we are, what they call it, pumpkins, or was it not pumpkins, but coconuts, exactly. Coconuts, white, I mean black on the face.
Yes.
And I feel insulted, but I blame no other than James Nguwa, the young who came to my college and said, From now, I refuse to write in English. And no, I'm not going to do it. I write in Kikuyu. If they want, let them understand it in English. So in English, they know I'm very good in my language.
We got the gist of what you were saying there, my brother Sam. We got the gist of what you were saying. But your
culture and the community expression.
The line doesn't permit us to. Sorry, your line doesn't permit us to continue with your question, my brother Sam. But we certainly got the gist of what you were saying. Thank you so much. Thank you, my brother King Joshua. Were you able to get the gist from my brother? Are you able to respond to any points that he was making there?
What my honorable brother is saying, it is the ultimate. When we have reached that level where we can talk to each other, where we can converse with each other. Between now and that time, we need this colonial language for communication. Right now, if I should speak in my Karanga language, ndikatanga kutaura chikaranga ndiri pano, ndinosara ndotaura ndavandoka. Vamwe mose munosara maamurima. Zobadza kuti wanga achiti kudii. I'm equally eloquent in my mother tongue, and I can take it short left right now, and I'll remain talking alone. So until such a time when the educational system starts to respond to a united communication language, which Africa can talk to herself, which Africa can celebrate herself, which Africa can do business with each other without suspicion. Right now, with the Anglo-Saxons, we have the Francophones, we have the Luxophones, and we are all divided into these phones and phones and phones. And you wonder at the end of the day, where are we going? Because right now the French phones think they are superior to the Anglophones. The Anglo-Saxons think that they are superior to the Portuguese. The Portuguese think they are superior. So, and Africans, the colonialists are no longer here, but Africans are divided. We are busy playing games with each other because of the framework of thought, patterns, fashion. Bonjour, comment ça va, ça va, and who speaks more French than the French themselves, who speak more English than the English themselves, which is a shame. And until such a time when we have, hence I'm talking about 5063. I don't want to talk about 2063, because that talks about 30 years from now. I want a 400-year plan, because if we are aware of how much time colonialism has taken to bring us where we are, we need to extrapolate the same time going forward. How much time will it take us to undo what the colonial system has done? So yes, we need a language amongst ourselves. Yes, we need a common currency amongst ourselves. We need common universities amongst ourselves, where we can position Africa. Those who want to do language, go to Nairobi. Those who want to do medicine, go to South Africa. Those who want to learn agriculture, go to Congo, and we establish and support each other in our various countries based on our resources and our strengths. Then we can begin to develop an Africa that is able to interact business, economically, religiously, to herself. Even now, as a spiritual leader in my own space, I'm not happy. For the past 400 years, blood has been spilled on the African continent, unaccounted for, mercilessly, from slave trade to Congo, to all the liberation struggles fought from Ghana, Accra, to South Africa. But as Africans, we know, when the blood of a man has been spilled on the ground, there must be a ceremony to cleanse that ground. What are our politicians saying about that? It's non-important. What are our religious saying about that? Jesus paid it all. What is Allah saying about that? Don't worry about it. I'll come and take you to heaven. Are we being truthful to our African spiritual vote, where we understand the value of life in the light of colonial systems? And how have we lost that sanctity of life? So for me, it's not just an economic revolution or an academic revolution, a political revolution, a fashion revolution, a media revolution, a food revolution, a spiritual revolution is even more important, because as people believe, so they behave. I thank you.
We thank you too. And if I can just add to the tail end of what you were saying there, so people believe, so they act. And it's not as if we don't have our African languages, but clearly what's lacking is the pride in those African languages. You know, the miseducation system has been such that it has convinced the African that, you know, he shouldn't have pride in his language, in his culture, in his dress, and who he is as an African. And so we can bring African languages into the school, but unless we have that pride in our language and who we are and in our continent and what we stand for in our history, even history, pre-colonialism, etc., we will continue to be in the situation we're in for the next 400 years. So along with embracing an African language, let's also embrace the pride in our language. You know, here in the UKKK, you'll have the Indians and the Chinese, and they'll speak their language with pride. You know, they will dress, the Indians will dress in their saris here in England. The Indians will dress in their saris, the Chinese will dress in their traditional dish, they'll eat their traditional food. And as our brother King, Joshua Mapongo, pointed out, we try to be more English than the English or more French than the French. We need to get that African mindset back, absolutely, and take pride in our Africanness. Well, I see we've got Stephen, whose hand is raised. We haven't heard from Stephen this evening. Let's bring him in to make a point and maybe ask, and also ask a question to our King.
Yes, thank you very much, sister. I didn't want to say anything, but Maponga's perspective really is irresistible and inspiring. Actually, to be honest with you, I don't agree with everything that he's saying, but I think we need such people. Within the Pan-African ranks, I think we need people who speak in a direct tone, because I think it's time for us to do something about our situation. And one thing that I found it very interesting is also, I'm a Zimbabwean myself, and I've got Malawian and Zambian origin, but I need a passport to go to Malawi or to Zambia, I imagine. And I found that very appropriate. And you know, there was someone who wrote on the text, on the text part, on the chat, about PhDs. You see, when Maponga was talking, I just asked him, where is this guy? Why is he not coming in these platforms of the university where we are talking about decoloniality? Because see, the way you speak about these things, you don't use like, see, it's something about you, King, that is so irresistible and you can't just resist it. And I can feel the genuineness about it when you express it. So I just said that, let me just say something. I want to say that we are within this Pan-African journey. Actually, we need voices like yours, a voice that is so touching, that is so challenging. We might not agree with everything that you say, but to be honest with you, whatever you've been saying this evening touched me. Even if that which I didn't agree with, I see the truth in it. So I want to just say thank you for that, and yes. Okay.
Thank you. And do you have a question?
I can respond to that and say, Maita Shoko, Maita Vizijena, Hewa Shoko, Hewa Wana Nokwara, Hewa Wana Mkanya, Heka Nwaro Shoko yangu Embereka, Wana Makwira Miti, Wana Mahum, Wana Mpona Ngokuba, Wana Chilamba Kusesera, Wana Mshamba Negore, Makumbe Mwana Mwesende Weshano, Heka Nwaro Shoko yangu hii. And ndimi wakataka kugara shoko yangu yembereka wakaira mutupu umwe nashe vano vapfumo jena vanobva guruswa vakubva kumatonjeni ndimo kumatovo vanaisi vemvura meso ngasinganiwi nemvura mahobu vikomba shoko yembire wiriamiti yasosve vanobva hwedza vapfuri vemhangura navecheri vayo chiwere shoko yembereka zvaikwa matariri vari mumahwe mani tinodya masosve tichiboera maita vanobva hwedza ndimi vana mazvikongonyadza vana mutangandagara mutangandaguta vana mutanga kuvona ndimi vana chigara mahwe matanda anovora zvibwe zvitedza zvinotedzera vari kure vari pedo vanotamba nazvo mutambo uri paruware ndimi vana matanga kugara varimi vanochema newe vana mazvikongonyadza ufamba ukanyaira chibwe chitedza chinotedzera vari kure vari pedu vanotamba nacho zvaikwa chiwere rudzi risina chiramwa maita vana makoromokwa nanzva paruware vananzva vane mashako magaro vana muponango kuba vakaera mutupo umwe nashe tisi vana pirika kana tiri kuMalawi vana mutswenenga tapinda muSouth Africa vana kavo kana tiri muBotswana vana skosana kumandevere fakudze mutolo wiramiti yasose chiramba kusesera vakashava muti vokwira mu.
Thank you very much. I've gone
Thank you.
sing
For those
praise.
who cannot hear, these are the totems of my tribe, and we are celebrating an African stalwart. And I thought from my tribe, I would share some of the poetry from my tribe. I thank you.
Thank you.
Beautiful, beautiful. Brother Elam, your time now. The floor is yours, Brother Elam. Brother Elam?
I hope you're getting me.
Okay, we're hearing you now, yes.
Can Maponga also highlight some things about the origins of humanity, where you get to realize that some pastors and rabbis claim to have gone to the Garden of Eden, where they think human beings began from, and yet probably within scientific explanations, we realize that humanity began in the Great Lakes region in Africa, and the first man was an African over 5 million years ago. So we realize that now we are into this confusion where even our history teachers believe in such things. The Reverend gone to the Garden of Eden to and check, and they were like, it exists. So I don't know how we can also explain such things. And in this instance, we realize that from childhood, we've been growing up in such ways of doing things, and where even our parents, they themselves are already they're miseducated in a way that they also push for the same thing. They'll be like, they say that the fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom. But to me, literally, it would mean like the fear of a white man is the beginning of wisdom. So such things, such narratives, we have to change them. And I don't know if at all there are some instances where we can clearly, wash away all these things. And because from childhood, you become indoctrinated with such false information, as if you're reading a story about Superman or something like that. And you realize that these children have now grown up to be big people who are not responsible for their problems. They'll always now blame God. They'll blame Satan, if at all it's a bad thing, and if it's a good thing, they'll say God. So such things, I don't know if at all we can change them in this perspective by so in even the Bible itself, because it's another misconception and it's full of racial discriminations, in that I see some element of racism in the Bible than in other books of the white men. Thank you.
When the face is beautiful and the software is not working, the hardware between your legs will always suffer. When the country is beautiful and management is poor, the resources will always suffer. And the poor people will not be free. We needed to understand a simple parable I can share with you is on your phone. You go to the shop right now and you buy yourself a beautiful phone. When you switch it on, it will say software upgrade, but it's brand new because software controls hardware. Your question is directly linked to how can we transform the software so that the hardware of the African can be transformed in the way it performs. Right now, the software we are using is education. And that software is William Shakespeare. That software is Charles Dickens. That software is Plato. That software is Socrates. Until we transform the quality of our software to celebrate the Queen Nzingas, Queen Nandis, the kings of Africa. And these characters are put as heroes in our narrative, which our children can aspire to be like. Right now, our children want to be like Michael Jackson. They want to be like Sylvester Stallone. They want to be Celine Dion. And how do you build a continent when its software is corrupted by European iconography and idolization, pontification of Eurocentric ideologies that are not related to the continent? How educated are you to be called a doctor, yet you cannot feed yourself? You can't even plant vegetables for yourself and feed your big belly. And you are a doctor. What has this turned us to be? Except to make us parasites to the colonial system and abusers, pimp masters, our presidents and politicians. They run Africa like a brothel. Religious leaders who assist the colonial system to suppress, oppress, and abuse and rape the African economy under their supervision, protecting the colonialists and closing the door to make sure no one interrupts when sodomy is happening amongst the African nations. How do they sleep at night, I wonder? Look at Conde. He donated more than 20 million to build up a statue of the French temple. His own people are drinking sewage water. And he has enough money to donate to the French government to build a Gothic picture of homosexuality and sodomy and animalistic bestiality pictures that are in the temple of France. African money is being used to pontificate such derogatory and insult of African culture. I don't feel sorry for such a man. I don't approve. To take over of governments, but neither do I sympathize with governments that don't love their people, that would rather look nice to the Europeans when their own people are suffering in poverty. They go to United Nations, all they do is to take pictures, standing on the stairs with other presidents. When business is being discussed, they are busy shopping with their mistresses downtown Manhattan. No, no, enough is enough. I want to make a call to all African young people. Take over the government. Take these politicians, put them in one big bag and dump them in the sea. We don't need them. We don't need them. We will not miss them either. How do we change? We start off with software, education, transformation. Stop spending your wealth on colonial systems. Start spending money on each other. Build local economies. Don't destroy the white man's economy. You will collapse. Let's start building a parallel system and we move our money to ourselves. The other system will die by itself. We don't need to kill it. It will die by itself. In conclusion, the best way to fight a colonial system is simply by us loving ourselves. And once we love ourselves, we don't need to worry about the other person, them also loving themselves. But we love ourselves, we love our food, we love our fashion, we love our time, and we spend our resources on ourselves. We don't need to fight with white systems. Let's create our systems, our own value chains, our product lines that we can support with our finances and challenge pound for pound the colonial system. There's no way they can survive. We can beat them in numbers. I thank you.
We thank you so much. You know, such good advice there. I noticed there's a lot of young people in the house. You know, I'm just thrilled when I see the young people because you are our future. The young ones, you're the one who's going to be taking this teaching into the future. Let's bring in our brother Niavi.
I want to thank King Mapunga for everything he has been saying since he came on, and everything that he has been doing online, because I'm one of his fans. I always learn a lot from him. There is something that we've tried to analyze on our part, And like he was saying, he wants the timeline to be 400 years. Mm-hmm. We have seen that we can transform Africa within the next 3 decades. If we come together, in 30 years, we can move this continent, this nation, to the #1 economy that the second will be coming very far behind. Mm-hmm. We have the highest number of people on this planet. We have the resources. We are everywhere on earth. Of recent, we just had the African and our Americans or Caribbeans conference, summit, which is something that was supposed to have taken place long ago, but just happened. Those are some of the signs of the things that we are seeing. If China could transform from where it was in the 80s, that many African countries had to help China to what China is today. And we all know what is happening in Europe and in America, how they are declining. And with the young population we have in Africa, I think that if we put heads together, we can move this continent to the highest level in less than no time. Yes, just like Professor Lumumba said, we have to start taking action. Yes, the talk will be there, but it's time for us to start taking action in a strategic, tactical way. So, King Mapunga, keep doing what you are doing, empowering the youth, and within the next 30 years, maybe it's not up to the 2063, we will be the best economy on this planet. We'll get back to where we were, because that was where we were. Thank you very much.
No, thank you very much for that contribution. I truly appreciate that. And your comment is supported by a strong political will. Your comment can become a reality if the political watchdogs, our presidents, and our political system is willing to lose power in the next 30 years and begin to work towards a centralized African economy. That is possible.
Yes, but we need to get our people. We need to get our people to those governments. That is what, just like you said, they don't give it to us. We have to work out the way to get it.
The danger we face is when we take our people to those systems and they become the beneficiaries. Mm-hmm. They will do worse than the people that are there are doing. So we will be back at ground zero. So hence, when I'm talking about elementary education, you'll be changing foxes with hyenas. There's nothing wrong right now with young people getting into power, but when they get into power and they're still upholding the same system, the same governance, the same jurisdiction, the same political system, we are not going to go anywhere. By using the 400-year trajectory, I'm saying let's study what the colonialist has done for 400 years to get where we are with technology, with social media, and the fast track of education. We could cut that period almost by a third to maybe 50 to 60, 100 years maximum. But if we are to use the same trajectory and time frames, we must be prepared to plant trees now that we know our children will harvest from them. But it is dangerous for us to plant vegetables because we may never eat the fruits. I thank you.
Very true. You see, what we are doing at KWAME NKRUMAH Ideological Institute is trying to revive what Nkrumah did. If you've been following Nkrumah and you know what he started to do when most African countries started gaining independence, he wanted to create the African personality, which you just spoke about. Who is an African? So those were the things that he wanted to do. And those are the things that we are reviving. To get the African personality, we have to bring back our own system, not this sham called democracy. We have to bring our own system, or whatever people may like to call it, maybe democracy with African characteristics. So this is the kind of thing. We are already working on a new type of system, which in the due course will be shared with people like you to add your input and see how we can start to lobby for it to be implemented. Just, we have to start somewhere. We already have something that we are working on to make sure that what the system that we have now is a swamp. It should be flushed out. We have to clean the swamp. That is just what I would say. We have to clean this system, bring Afrocentric ways. We saw what happened in Rwanda. We saw these systems that traditional African agriculture style that produce more than what the government spends so much money in irrigation that cannot produce.
I'm
fully in agreement. Those things.
I'm fully in agreement with you. What I suggest we do as a KWAME NKRUMAH organization is to maybe to come up with a documentation of Nkwame's vision, Nkwame's passion, and his vision for Africa. And even if it is a small little booklet, to be disseminated to all the universities in Africa and be packaged together with the political agenda of every student. We begin to replace the educational system with our own agenda as Africans. Because I tell you the honest truth, yes, until we're able to capture the education system, when you graduate from that system, you will support the same system that is abusing your own people, because it is coming to you as a bank check at the end of every month. So yes, I stand in full agreement. We can start off here, start up the institution, identify 100 people, we take them through the institution, the 100 must train 100, the 100, the 200 train 100, the 300 train 100 in less than 1 year. We should at least be able to say we have 1.6, 2.8 million Africans who now have a different software. And we hope that out of that pool, when some of them move into political office, they will have the software to begin to tamper with the bolts and nuts that are holding the African political and economic system, the banking system and education systems in hold right now. And in top of every system that is oppressing blacks, blacks are now managing those systems. Black people like you and me.
Yes.
Right now, if I make you a CEO of Standard Bank, you will make sure that no one gets credit without land. And yet you know that an African does not have land, and the land is in the hands of the white man. But yet you are there because the policy of the bank is telling you this is how we do banking. Until you get into those places of power and say, how do we restructure traditional lands? Can that land also be used as surety for banking? Can people in rural areas access funding for mining and production and business using their land as surety to access funding? Something in that line. There's very little transformation coming from Massachusetts and Harvard University, because those students are not trained to develop Africa. They are trained to harvest the resources and feed the colonial system. I thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Yes, indeed. This is our university. This is, it was mentioned in the chat that by someone that they actually follow King Joshua on Facebook, and they're recommending to others that you join King Joshua on Facebook, okay, where you can continue with the learning and the education and the knowledge that he's sharing with us here today. I wonder if our brother King Joshua Maponga will kindly give his, I was going to say Facebook, share his Facebook details. Yes,
my Facebook page is Maponga Joshua Farmers of Thought, but I've been banned there for the next 30 days. So I'm in and out of prison every 2 weeks. So it's expected. So you guys, as the KWAME NKRUMAH institution, you may want to talk to some of your IT specialists and see if we can come up with a concept of a Face Africa, which can challenge Facebook pound for pound. Our own servers, and where we can create our own platform. There's already 1 or 2, but I think they need the support from organizations such as yourselves, where we can have access to platforms, we can market those platforms and move our audience to those platforms so that we can begin to have a progressive conversation. We fully know that Zuckerberg and Bill Gates and the CIA, KGB, M15 and 16 are managing our conversations very intensely. Even these platforms of Zoom, while we are recording, we don't even know who else is recording this. The owner of Zoom is even recording this conversation also. So it moves over to real issues of security and innovation. So we want even to challenge you as an institution. If you have IT specialists, put them together. Let's create a Face Africa, which can challenge Facebook. And we can begin to create a platform where as Africans, we can run our own training development programs on a platform that is not governed by the same colonialists we are condemning. I thank you.
Thank you. Please, Sister Shanice, let me just say something. Our third conference just much on Kwame Nkrumah's work, his ideology, that is a scientific socialism. So there will be presentation on that. And so that is, if people can attend or would attend that third conference, they are going to hear a lot about what the way Kwame Nkrumah wanted us to be, wanted us to do. So there is room for some modification here and there, because we know that time is not constant. So we've seen certain things with our own experiences. We can chip in left and right. So, but we have a blueprint of what he wanted, because just like Professor Lumumba said, he was ahead of time, because what he proposed in 1963 is what we are trying to achieve in 2063, a century. Yeah, so the third conference, we have a lot on Nkrumah himself. Thank you.
Wonderful. We thank you so much as well. Was Kwame Nkrumah ahead of time, or are we behind time? Let me ask our King Joshua Mpongo, who we have so much had the privilege and honor of hearing from during this extended period of time, if he would mind just leaving us with some closing remarks and some comments that was going to continue to just inspire our young people who are listening right now. Thank you.
Politics in the hands of the old people is a funeral parlor.
Hey.
They are discussing a future which they are not going to be part of. They will have long died. We don't want old people to be telling us what they are preparing for the future. We want the young people to come forward and contribute towards the future that they want. We have the software as old people. We have the knowledge. We have indigenous knowledge. And before we also close our eyes, like in a typical relay, do not avoid us as old people. Come close, learn as much as you can. The battle continues. We are not here for eternity. But as long as the next generation learns from the mistakes of the older generation, we can be able to transform to create the Africa that we need. Dress African, eat African, treat diseases African. In conclusion, every professional person, please be innovative. Use your education to create one solution for Africa, be it water, be it electricity, be it recycling, be it mining, be it technology, be it engineering. But please don't die before you leave us with something that you will have created. And if we can harvest the energy of the youth in innovation and creativity, we don't need to import cars from China and computers from China. We don't need machinery from Europe. We can develop these things, and all our universities must become innovation hubs and innovation centers of creating local solutions. The minerals we're talking about, we don't want to dig them and export them. Ask yourself the question, when they are taking these minerals, what are they using those minerals for? and let our universities connect the young people to their resources. And in so doing, we're able to create a manufacturing, entrepreneurial Africa that the world is not yet ready for. We have the resources, we have the brains. Above all, may the spirits of the land be with you. May the gods of Africa watch over you. May the sun shine gently on your crops. May the rains fall in due season. May you stand. May they visit you in the night and give you dreams and visions in the future that we all anticipate for. With that prayer, let Africa be united to achieve what KWAME NKRUMAH and the rest, Marcus Garvey, Martin Luther, Malcolm X, and other leaders have long dreamt for. Time for talking is over. Let us convert our thinking into our doing. Have yourself a wonderful evening.
Ashe, thank you so much. To all of you who are still on our platform, thank you so much for staying with us. We've learned so much. One love, family. More love, more power, more voodoo.
Thank you, Sister Shanice. Thank you very much. Thank you.
One
See
love.
you guys on Thursday.
Yeah. One love.
Thank you.